today we're super we're really really lucky. We have a special guest today. We have a special guest today who a bunch of you guys are going to you're going to want to take out a piece of paper. You're going to want to have a pen out because yes, EB is ready to go. Because our guest today is a master tactician at something that many of you have raised your hand over the years and asked me, how do I get good at this? And Susan, I have to tell you, I listened to your MREA podcast, and it just kind of, boy, we sing from the same hymnal, as they say. We have a very similar way of distilling the complicated down to the simple and then executing. And I am thrilled to welcome you here. Susan, we started this call about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Every Friday, I have a guest come and join our team and talk to us about leadership, personal development, tactical things that they execute. It's been a real boon for our business. It's been great for our team. But primarily, I did it because we get the good fortune, people like yourself and I, to get invited to talk to cool people like Jason Abrams and Gary Keller. And then we get all this nuggets and knowledge and information, and we bring it back to our team. And generally, we flub it and mess it up and don't do such a great job of delivering the message. So I just figured I was going to get out of the way and invite the leaders to the team so that we could hear directly from the source. So welcome to the Miale team. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You're all the way from Georgia, right? Atlanta, if I remember correctly.
Yes, by way of New Orleans. No, the New Orleans area is home, but I've been in Atlanta since Katrina.
So
yeah, 20 years now.
20 years in Atlanta. One of our team agents here grew up in Atlanta, Bennett. He's a big Atlanta fan, right? So you've got one in the audience. So Susan, I've been in the business since 2006, and having been through all the trials and tribulations of, building a real estate team and learning the business, I love the mechanics behind what makes top performers tick, like how you see the business. And I know it wasn't always that way, right? Like what I see is that there's usually an evolution for somebody, that they go through some sort of an evolution in how they think about the business, how they approach the business, and that there's usually something that works really well and they lean into. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning, like the beginning, like young Susan, ready to take on the world, maybe before real estate even. Like what was your career? How did you get started? You said you grew up in New Orleans, and you went to I know from the podcast I listened to, you went to college. Like, what were you thinking about as far as a career at that point?
So I'm from a little tiny town about an hour and a half south of New Orleans, like very, very blue collar. And after graduating college, we moved to the city and lived there about 8 years or so. But coming up in a very petroleum and seafood, that's it. That's the two industries. And I had zero bits of interest in a career path in either of those avenues. So, and college was a tough decision. Like I was the first person in my family to even graduate high school. So I literally didn't even know the first steps to take. So my original...
There weren't mentors in your life that were saying, "Oh, this should be a path."
No.
Okay.
No. Everything was figure it out. Just figure it out at every step. And initially, when I first realized that, okay, I'm going to go to college. So what am I going to do? I actually wanted to be a news reporter.
Oh, cool.
That was the first dream. And then I had that little small town mentality of, well, you really have to move in a big market to be successful there. And I couldn't even see that for myself. Like I started from such a low place. I couldn't even see that for myself. So Hurricane Katrina was the best thing that ever happened to me because it got me here and just blew my life wide open. But in the in-between years, I ended up going to school. I actually graduated in psychology with a double minor in management and marketing. So I never had intention of um, like therapy sessions. I was more interested in corporate, like the PR kind of stuff, HR, PR, that sort of vein is what I wanted to go in. And then I was going on to get my master's. I figured I would cap off an MBA before I started my career. I sent out one single job application and I got the job after about 6 months of interviewing. And for 20 years, I was a homeowner's adjuster.
All
So
right.
all
So
the
let
bad
me
things happened.
let me just
Fire, like,
let me
mhm,
pause you there for a second. So you come from a blue collar town,
mhm,
first to graduate high school, but then you go on not just you say, well, high school's good, but I'm going to take on college too. Major in psychology, get a double minor. You said management and marketing. Um,
mhm.
what part of you found it interesting to sort of pursue a career that, I would say felt coming from a blue collar environment? How did you have awareness of like a corporate structure job? Where did that come from? Did you have a mentor in your life in college or somebody that showed up that sort of said like, "Hey, you should consider this"?
No, I had one pivotal teacher going into my senior year. I was always like a good student, but I did not connect with algebra at all. And it was the holdback of good ACT scores and that kind of thing. So at that point in time, like we were like mandated, everybody took it.
Yeah.
And it kind of was a thought, like maybe, but if it's not in your environment, it wasn't out there for me. And one teacher a first year out of school. She was barely older than me, took a very deep interest in me. And she's like, I see more in you. Like, let me help you. Let me tutor you in algebra. And I was like, okay, because I didn't know what was wrong with the algebra part of my brain because I
Yeah.
was always good in math, but letters and equations just did not make sense to me. And I went from 0 to 60. I went from how do you even do this to 6 weeks later is when I took the test again and I tested out of algebra. So it was just the material had never been presented to me in such a way that it connected. But it's like everybody that starts from a low point or mid or a high point, pivotal people in your life that
Yeah.
extend their hand to you or
Yeah.
see something in you and have the courage to say it.
Yeah.
Um, that changed the trajectory of everything because I felt like, wow, why not me? Of
Yeah.
course I can do that. And I just went like a freight train from that point forward. It wasn't the why not me. It turned into it's going to be me.
So somebody kicked a door open for you that unlocked a part of you that became invincible. You said, okay, hard thing, I can do hard things. I know how to do hard things. I'm okay with that. I can overcome that. I'm just gonna have to learn. I have to put a little more time. See, that's really, really powerful. That's a really, really powerful sentiment that we've all got it in us. We just have to have the ability to navigate whatever it is that's a roadblock at that time. All right, so very, very
Mhm.
cool. So you get out of college, you apply for one job, you get your first job. And I love this part of the story. So you tell me again, now you were in insurance.
Yes.
What was your role there?
It was in the claims department, so it was a field job. Something terrible happened to you if you saw me. I was in the large loss unit, so your home burned down, tornadoes. I spent earthquakes, anything that was on the news for the first 7 years of that career. I was there. I was a first responder. Um, Earthquakes, tornadoes, floods, tsunamis,
Wow.
whatever was on the news is where I was long term until the assignment ended. And then about 7 years into it, I switched over to the litigation side, getting files ready that would go into suit, doing the pre-interviews and all of that sort of thing. Also for the large losses in homeowners claims. And then the last 5 years of it, I switched to just massive claims for commercial carrier.
I
So
think,
I've always been in there, like something home related.
well, I actually feel like you got a master class PhD in
Mhm.
the elements that make somebody an exceptional real estate agent. Like you had to deal with the emotional ups and downs and trauma at a much higher stress level than what we deal with now when people are buying or selling. But of course, that's a highly stressful occasion, but they haven't just lost everything that they own. So you've learned the human dynamic of what happens when people are under duress and under stress, and how do you respond to that? How do you engage them? So you got this interaction schooling, but then at the same time you learned what a carrying beam is and what like what the purpose of multiple different parts of the home were. Because of course, as an insurance adjuster, you're going in and assessing what was damaged, what wasn't, what's the value of that. So I mean, I would hire you as my realtor in a minute. Like you had the knowledge base there. So,
It's a cool skill set because I can walk into any house to this day and high to low what anything's going to cost from basic to high level. It's a very, very usable skill.
very
And I
usable.
wrote thousands and thousands of estimates over 20 years. Like I can walk in a house and tell you what square footage is because I've measured so many houses to the inch. It was required to the inch. So yeah, very transferable skill set.
I love that. So like, I mean, I don't know how many times, guys, are we on in a showing with somebody and says, how much does that cost? Right. And Susan's like, well, within 2%, she can give you a number. That's pretty wild. All right. So
Facts.
you've got this baseline, this foundation of an insurance career that's kind of prepping you. How did that come to a close? What was the impetus for changing careers?
So like many of you can identify with, I was on that corporate ladder centrifugal force for 2 decades, and I was within 18 months of the dream. I would have been the first female AVP of a Fortune 100 insurance company. There was an attrition plan. There were five positions that were going to be aging out over 5 years. So they were charged with identifying people in the company that could promote and carry the weight of those roles. So I did the things where I'm doing, bits and pieces of their jobs along with my jobs. And I had an emergency surgery, like from finding out I needed it on the table within 72 hours, and all of the centrifugal force stopped.
Mm.
And I realized I was 2 weeks into like good surgery medication, and I was still waking up just running through files and all the to-do lists and all the things I was responsible, and I was so razor focused on getting that promotion. Like I was going to be the one they chose. And I had got to a place when I started realizing winning is in your mind. It is not external. If you want it and you razor focus, you're just going to get it. And when you come from such a low place and everything's been a climb up, I learned along the way that it is very difficult to find someone who can outwork me because I've always had to work so hard to prove myself. So I was literally back after the surgery about 5 weeks later, and it was the penthouse suite in Buckhead. Um, Everything about the job was what I dreamed. And I was on the elevator ride up talking to the attendant, and it hit me like a bolt of lightning that, wow, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Just like that on the elevator ride up. And so I did what no, especially I think a female in corporate America should do. I sat on it for a day. I thought about it. And then I went the next day and I told the vice president that I was reporting to that I literally was candid. I'm very direct. If anybody knows me personally, like don't ask me a question you don't want the answer to. So I told him, I said, okay, I'm telling you something that I should not say. It's the death of a corporate career. But the balance of work and family is non-existent. And I had an older middle schooler and a high schooler at the time. I said, the sand is falling through the hourglass, and I cannot do this at this pace anymore for 18 months. I won't get that time back. So, long story short, he said, can you give me 24 hours? And I said, sure. So, next day I came back and he said, okay, you're no longer in a pool of 5 people for this position. We're going to guarantee you the job if you stay. We'll cut it in half. It will not be 18 months. We will relieve you of this role. You can step into that role in half the time. And he slid across a salary that I never thought I would see in my life. And in that instant, I thought, wow, I did it. I got everything I ever wanted. Turns out I don't even want it
I
because
love
I
it.
confused being really good at something with being happy, and it's not the same thing.
Wow. Yeah.
So I took my 24 hours, but I knew that instant that I was not going to accept. And I quit with no plan B. And for about mm, like 7 years or so, I always had a little nag that I think I would be pretty good in real estate.
Mm.
Always had an interest. I was always in the
So
vein of
let
in
me
and
let
out
me
of.
just pause for a
Mhm.
second because that story is just so powerful. You got everything you ever wanted and then realized you didn't want it because somewhere in the dichotomy of measuring happiness, fulfillment, and success, you forgot that they can overlap, that success and happiness can actually happen at the same time. And so,
Yes.
giant salary, giant, how old were you at this point? Again, 2 kids. So give me kind of a rough timeline on
I
your,
was right at like 42,
yeah.
42.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
takes incredible courage to do something like that. And I think a tremendous knowing of yourself, like recognizing. So then it goes back to that algebra teacher that taught you, yeah, well, hard things happen and you can do them. Like, so at some point you must have wrestled with, like, am I crazy? What am I doing? Did you ever have any second thoughts about that? Like, what in that moment when you were clear, you said it hit you like a bolt of lightning, but then there's this period of time where, this offer, did you ever wonder, am I making the right decision?
I think that's a natural part when you're making major pivots in life.
Yeah.
I don't think you're balancing the decision if you don't think that way. But I knew a couple of things. Failing was not an option because I was just a few years away from my oldest starting college, and my youngest was 2 years behind him. So I didn't have the luxury of what the stats said that, you should have 6 months to a year funds saved, that take you 3 to 5 years is what everyone told me to get back to even where I was on income. And I thought, you know what? I don't have that kind of time. So just like everything else, I'm going to figure it out.
I love it.
And that first full year, I had exceeded I mean, the first full year, it was only half of a year. So my first year was 2015. 2016 was my first full year in the business. And I had already exceeded that income that I never thought I would see again.
In two
Because
years.
mm-hmm,
In
actually,
two
yeah, a
years.
year and a half.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
did.
So let's get down to the brass tacks here. So you make this decision to change careers. You go and get a real estate license. You'd had it nagging at you. You decide I'm going to jump into this business. What was the first, like, we've all been there. Everybody here, some people on this call are in their first year right now. And you jump into the business with a with I have to imagine some version of a plan. Talk to me about what your plan was. Like, how did you say, okay, I'm going to do this, but we now have a good sense of who you are, what motivates you, and how you think. So you approach the business, and I think there's probably a fire. You don't have the time. What did you do? What was like, the first day is the first day. What did you do? How do you think that you differentiated yourself?
Yeah, so I repeated what I learned in my corporate career. I was mentored by amazing people in the early part of that career. And then at the tail end of it, I became the mentor. So I knew the quickest way to anything is find the person who had the least amount of time to give to me and make their time worth it for them to give it to me.
Wait, say
So
that again. Say that again. That is so smart.
I knew to find the person who had the least amount of time for me because they would be doing this at a very high level and figure out how to make their time be worth spending it with me. Because I was at a very like a smaller brokerage the first 2 years. They're big in Atlanta, like 17 offices, but they're just not anywhere else. Um, and so I went to every class and devoured it, like my life depended on it. I had decided for the first like 60 days, I wasn't going to attempt anything client facing because I was leaving a career where I was at the top. I was accustomed to being the person who knew it all, or, as much as we can. We never know it all, but you know what I mean. I was
Yeah.
at the top of my game. And I wanted, and now all of a sudden I'm at the bottom. I know nothing. I'm shiny in the wrapper. And so I attended every single class I could get my hands on. And I learned, okay, here's all the paths and avenues. There's farming, there's cold calling, you can buy leads, door knocking people, all the different ways that you can build a successful real estate business. And I latched on to anybody who was doing that in or out of the industry. I had started attending networking events because I didn't care what company you were with, who's doing this better than anybody else.
I love it. So you found
And
you went looking for a mentor. You went looking
I did.
for literally Gary just said this 2 weeks ago, and I've repeated it twice in the last week. Once walking with Dan Raposo and once walking with Ed Ford, two of the agents on our team. That Gary's model, you didn't know Gary Keller at that time, but you replicated his model. His model says at anything you want to be wildly successful at, you go find a person who has the level of success that you want and you copy everything that they do and start from there rather than start from not knowing anything and this is his models before creativity. So intuitively you knew what I ought to do is go find somebody that has the level of success that I want and just go live my life exactly the way they do and go do the things that
Correct.
they do. That's very smart. That's something a lot of people struggle with. It
Mhm.
requires a real lack of ego in order to say like, well, I guess I want to be wildly successful, but that's a results focused behavior thing. That's something that says I care more about the results than how I get there.
Mhm.
Really, really smart. So you went and you looked, and what did you discover?
So, what I quickly discovered is that from day one, I had a work ethic that did not exist overwhelmingly in real estate. Before I had a single client, I showed up every day. I was
Wait,
there like
how
I
many days, Susan?
day one,
No, yeah, you showed up how many of the days? You said every day. Every
every
single yeah.
day.
What do you mean not every other day? Yeah, right. Every day. Okay. So it was a full-time
Yes.
thing for you.
Yes. Because I thought, you know what? I'm not going to tap into people doing this at a high level at my house. I'm going to tap into them out there in the world. So, of course, I was looking at videos and every kind of training and started following people on socials and that sort of thing. But if they were to that level, there was a million steps between me and them. So, one thing I've learned climbing that corporate ladder is yeah, you need the person that you're chasing out there, but you really need the person who's right ahead of you, who just figured out the level that you're on,
So
so that it's more actionable. So I sat with all the different people running all the different models, and I became very astute at realizing the absolute pandemic that we have in this industry of squirrel chasing. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. And you do one farming piece and you check the box. Well, I tried farming, it didn't work. You did cold calling for a few hours. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work. No consistency. just constantly recreating the wheel. So I decided to spend the first, it ended up being 4 months. And I found my niche of what of these paths taps into my natural skill set. Which one that I would wake up every day and do for free.
Okay.
And for me, it was the relationship based sphere and farming model. I wanted to dominate the area where I lived. And I wanted to do it with relationships. I quickly figured out while I was actually good at it, I spent 3 days with the mic and the robo dialer. And I thought, no offense if that's your model, it was not for me.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
not.
thought, well, if this is the path to success, I'm really in trouble because I don't like it.
Yeah.
It was fine because, I get it. All the no's equal a yes. Just keep dialing, you'll get your yes. But I'm such a people person. It felt so disingenuous to who I am. So I
Yeah.
figured out the relationship path is how the business would be built. And farming was how I was going to start it. So I put the first postcard in the mail in month 4. And that farm, I still farm to this day. And I've maintained a 60 to 65% market share for the last 6 years of it.
Wait, you started a farm and you now have, and you've been in the business 10 years and
Mhm.
you have 65% market share in that farm.
Yes. And I
That's
have
remarkable.
duplicated. I've duplicated it to, I picked I did 6 neighborhoods. I only did that one. It was 498 people is how that started.
498 homes. And
Mhm.
if does that run pretty similar to the MREA model about right in there? So that'd be about 20 homes a year.
It's a low side of 20, high about 35, depending on the
Okay, so
market.
between 20 and 35 homes that turn
Mhm.
over every year in that farm, and you're getting 65% of that.
Yes. And it
And
was
those
a
are
very
those are
normal.
listings. So those are like that's the best client to get. Okay, we have to pause here for a second because
Mhm.
we're going to need to go from the high level down into the trenches because
Mhm.
I've been in the business for almost 20 years and I've heard the word farm. I've seen people do exactly what you say. They try it, they send it, and those results are not the typical. So you did something better, different, unique that made that created those results. So let's talk a little bit about first, how did you find the farm? Was it just where you lived? What created that was the place you wanted to go? And then you said you duplicated it. How did you pick the next farms? Let's talk about just selection. What was the goal and criteria? Because having gotten to know you, I bet there was a strategy behind it.
Yes. So I have a little formula that works unbelievably well for me. But the sole reason for the first farm is where I lived, and I had lived in the neighborhood about 10 years at that point in time,
Okay.
before I got licensed. And I thought, okay, well, this is the place where the most people know me, and I know most of them. Because remember, Atlanta's a transplant place. There's no long standing friendships, family, none of that exists. I'm starting from a raw, clear palette for that. So I started that farm, and from the beginning, I showed up like I was ready to play.
Okay.
My pieces, I did very specific market data. I wanted to see, okay, out of all the sales in a year, how many of them do the two dominants have? Because there were two
Two
dominant
dominant,
agents in it.
and when you say two dominant, you mean the dominant agents in that market.
Yes, one of them was the original agent who worked for the builder, who every single person in the neighborhood knew,
Yep.
because they didn't get to purchasing their home without knowing her through the build out process. And then the other one was an early, one of the first homeowners that was working in the neighborhood in tandem. And the two of them together would keep about like 28 to 34% market share. When I went back, I looked over 5 years. And so I thought, okay, well, then that means, 70 to 75% of sales was one offs.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's a big enough piece of the pie. I don't need to compete with them. I just need to compete for the other ones.
I love it.
That was,
I often say you have to start with the idea you don't need them all, you just need enough. Like we get overwhelmed by we look at market and we get overwhelmed. Oh, this person's number one. It's like they're not, they may be number one, but there's a whole huge pie of other people that you can beat. So and you said this earlier about even around finding a mentor, you don't need to mirror the person at the top, just the one that's right in front of you. That's who you're learning from now to build to eventually get to the top. So that very strategic. I call it the theory of the low hanging fruit, which is like just go get the next thing, and the ones higher up the tree will become clearer. So we're starting a farm of 490 households. There's a 75% available market share that you think is like one off, and and I want to I want to get a little tactical. When you say you started a farm, you're talking about mailers, really, right? Like that's really what you're doing. You're mailing pieces out, right?
yes.
Was there anything, just so I can was there anything else you were doing? Were you also door knocking? Were you also, doing block parties? Were you also sponsoring things, or was it just primarily the mailers?
Not at that time. Those things came maybe four four years in. For the first 4 years, the stats I'm about to share with you, it was one single postcard a month. And I thought, wow, what an incredible business model when I only have to do one quality thing per month. Not hundreds,
Yeah.
not dozens, one. One quality piece a month to be top of mind. Just that reticular activator. What does that need to look like? So I did the first 4 years was only postcards. It went every month without fail. From day one, I sat down with the marketing person. I knew kind of what I wanted it to look like and feel like. So I found some templates that best captured what, like, sort of matched what I had in my head. And I set myself up in month 4 to never miss a month. I knew that from my marketing background. Sporadic is not worth the time or the money or the effort. It has to be your full-time job that's getting in the mail, if that's going to be your model. So I mapped out a year's worth of material and
Now, is a year's worth of material 12 pieces? So
mhm,
12 pieces. Okay.
yes,
So just again, I want to make sure you weren't mailing every week. Just
no,
12 single piece. Okay. 12 pieces
12.
mapped out for a year. All right. So
And I followed a very simple rhythm that is the exact model that caused me to be my first MREA year. I was a solo agent still. It's the same model, that simple model, because I'm a huge, huge, huge believer. Simple gets done. When you overcomplicate anything, if you add too many clunky steps, it doesn't happen with consistency.
I love it.
So
Simple gets done. That's so good. So good. Got it.
and I'm solo at that point. I don't even have a staff. I'm a brand new agent. There wasn't teams at the market center I started in, so there wasn't any ecosystem to step into. Like, I didn't even know that existed in year one. That's how green I was to the industry. So, the ability, once I got in the KW world, I'm like, wow, like you could step into ecosystems where all this is set up. I worked in a brokerage, fantastic people, but everything was tight to chest. There was no sharing. It was not collaborative. So I was recreating the wheel. So I took this rhythm. The first piece is always a market stat. Nothing proprietary. Your actives under contracts, pending, close, year over year, percent of list to sale, the usual stuff.
And just to be clear, but specific to the neighborhood.
Only the neighborhood.
Right.
I
So
think
you've got 490 homes and you're saying, you're not sending market stats that aren't relevant. You're sending market
Mhm.
stats that are hey, of these 490 homes in this does that neighborhood have a name? Was it a neighborhood? Was it a community that people called it
Yes.
Hunter's Run or,
Grand
Shady?
Cascades.
What's it called?
Yeah. Grand Cascades.
Grand Cascades. So you're sending a marketing piece that's aligned with Grand Cascades. So people
Mhm.
see it and they go, well, that's where I live. So they're immediately compelled. And then the
Correct.
data that they're reading is compelling specific to them. It's not like we can read national market statistics. We can read even town-wide or citywide market statistics. They don't really mean anything to me. But if I see a marketing piece that's got my community name on it and details of things that I might actually know about. Oh, 123, uh, you know, Jonathan Court sold and it sold for this much. And I know that street. Like that suddenly gets me a lot more aligned with what you're sending. So you're sending a market stats piece, but specific.
Yes. I never send, even now that I have multiple farms, I never send a piece to any neighborhood that is not specifically branded to that neighborhood.
Very smart.
I don't think people care about a sale I had 15 minutes from their house, but everybody cares about what property values are in their community. So I don't do the one brush. It may be the same postcard, but we're going to have like a sign for the neighborhood, a house that's in the neighborhood, something linked where at a moment's glance, you're going to connect that this is about where you live. Their neighborhood name will be up there or some way. And I tagged it in the beginning, the I live where you live kind of thing. So then it follows a rhythm of the next 3 months are your typical neighborhood farming postcards, but I use templates for inspiration. I think about what emotion am I wanting to evoke in this piece? Like it's spring market, for example. I would highlight my lawn guy. We would have a QR code sign up, he did like neighborhood flowers, tree trimming, whatever I was doing to my own property. I would facilitate that in a card. So I became the go-to person for all things that have to do with your house. If they wanted a pressure washer, a painter, a new roof, a kitchen renovation. During those first 4 months, I assembled an absolute assassin vendor list,
Okay.
like an amazing vendor list. And I still use most of them to this day. And because of the work I do with them, I get incredibly fast service and I can turn things around quickly and I know they provide superior service. So
Can
link
I
yourself with
can I dive
superior vendors.
I just want to dive a little bit more into the tactical because you said you had the system where the first piece was like a market stats piece, and then
Mhm.
the other pieces were related to things that were specific to the home or like a vendor. And you mentioned were you cross promoting? Were you sending out a thing and said, scan here for your power washer? Were you actually advertising the other vendors that you were promoting, or were you just offering like, hey, now's a good time to get your leaves cleaned before the winter? Like, what was sort of the core messaging around it?
Well, I partnered with them to see if they would, and I wasn't even smart enough at that point in time to have them pay for it. I was just trying to get listings.
Yeah.
So I was paying for it, which is hysterical now. No, and I
You
learned
went to
you
like,
don't.
hey, would you mind if I advertise you for free? And they're like, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. Like, yeah, right. Yeah. Mm.
Yes. So I did, I wanted to be of service, top of mind for anything to do with their house, because I knew intuitively that is an easy way to build a bridge and a relationship with people. It gave me an easy way to follow up. I would do the look, I take, my vendor referrals very seriously. How was your experience? I'd love to see your kitchen. How was the yard? How was that backyard project turned out? I'd love to see a before and after. So it allowed me to have very engaging and truly genuine conversations with people because I cared about the outcome. So, and I learned never to put your vendor list out there because then you're cut out of that. They
Totally.
don't need to talk to you. The conduit is me to the vendor, is what the training. What am I wanting to train them to do? Is call me when they need a vendor. And so that became the easy button in the beginning. And then, again, I was solo, so I mastered the we before I had a me. And what I mean by that is the stats of my brokerage, our market share in the area, all that kind of stuff. Which if you're on a team,
You
you're
borrowed credibility until you had your own
yes,
credibility. That's a
yes,
monster skill.
yeah, master the me, I mean the we before you have a me. And then once it took in the fourth month of mailing is when I got my first listing. And
Four
that
months.
seems to be consistent across. And this is an agent with zero sales at that point in time. Zero sales. And I earned the listing, and this is a big statement, having competed against both of the other dominants.
So it was competitive. You went in and they interviewed three agents and hired you.
Yes, so this is great for the new people on your team to hear. Why? Because of course I asked them before the end of the transaction because they told me this is what they said. The other agents, yes, we knew. They knew obviously they were in the neighborhood, but they said they showed up like they were entitled to the work, and you showed up like you were ready to work.
Oh, I love it.
I showed up with a killer presentation. I could recite the stats.
Yeah.
I was so conversational about the sales. I was a student at a nerd level of the market.
Mhm.
Numbers were crunched and I could recite any of it. And to this day, I show up at appointments. It's super easy to show up that way because we can print a quick CMA, we can look at houses, we can have talking points. Even if you've never stepped in a neighborhood, you can know all the things to talk about if you really plucked through the comps and a CMA before you got there.
Yeah.
So, of course, now it started in the 18th month. I'm at 88 to 92% just come listed.
Wow.
Like the level of trust is so overwhelming.
Which is,
Um,
Gary and Jason have been talking about this a lot in the last few years, that your capacity for developing a relationship is largely driven by your consistency of messaging and the medium. The only thing that matters around the medium is how long it takes for you to establish it. So you said 18 months that you're sending mailers out, so they're seeing it once a month. But the people that are, listen, let's just say 20% of the people that get it are just throwing it out. They still don't even recognize you if they see you in the grocery store because they're just not attuned to whatever comes in the mail. But you don't care about those people. Who you care about are the ones that look at it and go, ooh, another one. I got another thing from Susan, and she's telling me about how to make sure my lawn doesn't die this summer or whatever. She's giving me good content. I'm going to keep this one for reference. I'm going to
yes,
put this away because there's something of value, and they're establishing a relationship with you through this medium. It just takes a while, and then but then they think of you. They think of real estate. They think of you. That's just how it happens.
yes. And like one of the ones I noticed, and of course, I didn't know this as I was dropping the breadcrumbs, but I had dominant market share my first full year, equal to them. The two of them combined in my first year, I equaled their market share. And by the second full year and beyond, it was 38%, 46%, 48%,
You know what?
52%. And I've been
They
sitting.
must love co-broking with you. They must be like, oh man, she got a like. They must love like that. Just must just rattle them. I love it. It's fantastic.
Well, it's like both of them were pretty nasty to me in the beginning,
Sure.
and the usual, this is our neighborhood. And I'm like, well, I live here too. So at first, I only wanted the 75 to 70%, but they were really nasty to me in
Oh,
the
I know it.
beginning and they poked a bear. So at that point, I decided 70% is not enough.
I always
I
say
want all
let's
100.
share. Yeah, we can share until you try to take mine. and then I'm going to take all of yours. Like I'm happy to share, but the minute you try to take my lunch, you're gonna starve. I'm gonna take
Yeah.
everything. So I love it.
So it was very fast. And the one turned into two, like my first full year. I went after 19 pieces of business and I got 17 of them.
So you also this is this would be a whole other hour for us. But so you also you said you had mastery of the stats. You knew what you were talking about. I'm going to guess you have a really buttoned up listing consultation that you do when you walk into the house. That you have a very clear outline of how you do it. That you're walking in with a plan because if you're
Yeah.
getting 17 of 19, those are that's not haphazard and random. That comes
Mhm.
from a predictable, repeatable, scalable system that you are executing every time you walk in. Because why would you
Correct.
change it? You're getting outrageous, you're getting good results. Why would you adjust it? Um, okay,
And the key is the data. I understood the data and I understood how to run comps. And I sat with agents who had mastery of that, of how do you run a custom CMA. And I could nail price from the beginning because I'm like, that's the key.
yeah,
Selling or not is price and how you can demonstrate that to a consumer. And people love data when they're selling. They
yeah.
just do.
You
And
said
so I
something.
showed up buttoned up with
You
all of
said
that.
something really important. You said it's price and how you can demonstrate that to a customer. What's important to hear there is it's not price make it the highest price. It's price and the supporting evidence that helps the
Mhm,
client understand that the decision that they're about to make about price is the
mhm,
thing that will differentiate whether they sell or don't sell. And what often, amateur agents, rookie agents do is they think price is it must be the highest. That's actually wrong, right?
mhm,
It's not the highest, it's the most defensible. It's the one that is the most defensible, the person that can present it with the most logic and the most supporting data that says this is the right price in order for
mhm.
you to get what you want, which is your home sold. So I
Yeah.
love that. Susan, we could I could spend another 3 hours talking to you. We didn't even get into some of the details of some of the questions I wrote down. And I know there's going to be a few others, but I want to respect your time. We're closing in on an hour here. So before we do that, I often like to just see who's on the call that has a question, just to give them an opportunity to chime in. So we've got Bennett raising his hand. Bennett has been in the business a long time, and actually, you messed around with farming for a long time, didn't you, Bennett? Go ahead, Bennett. Let's hear your question.
Well, I don't want to talk about farming because it wasn't successful because I did it, but I didn't follow it up with door knocking and the other stuff.
Yep.
And I probably should have just kept doing it longer. But a couple quick things.
Neither
One
did
is,
I. You don't have to.
well, I wish 10 years ago I wish I had you, but that's okay. I also just wanted to mention I grew up in Marietta. I was out of there. I haven't lived there since 1994 when I went to college.
Mhm.
Um, but you mentioned the the um vendor book, and we used to have that a couple years ago where everybody would always be like, "Hey Matt, where's this vendor book you're talking about?" And he would be like, "There is no vendor book. It's you need to ask specifically for the vendor, and I'll be the conduit." So I think that's we haven't talked about that on the team in a while, so I just wanted to like highlight that there's no book. It's just
Yeah.
we want you to ask us so that we could be the conduit and make that introduction.
So we
Uh,
want everyone to
Yeah.
know that we are the keeper of the best vendors on the planet. And so we
Mhm.
inform them, we ask them, we keep it, but there's no list that you mail out, right? Yeah.
yeah. The other thing
Now
is
we have a QR code that goes on our marketing that brings them to a Google sheet that they can do that or just call us, is what it says. You need a
Even
plumber.
better. Wow, that's so smart. So they can scan the QR code to say, I need a plumber. And then you
Yes.
send that, then you make the live connection. Brilliant, Susan. Brilliant. Boy, you got we're gonna have to keep talking. Tony, what are you thinking? What are you thinking?
A couple of questions, Susan. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing so many some nuggets, great information. My two questions are, The first one, which I think is great, you talk about like where you came from and like where you ended up. And a lot of time people say like where you come from, you don't have no control of, but where you end up, it's absolutely 100% your fault or you have control over that. Can you talk about like mindset? Because like when someone very close to me, like when I told him I was going to go into real estate, his actual response was like, "What are you going to do to support your family?" So that's always a struggle. Like people around you, like are they picking you up or were they pulling you down? And how did you deal with that? And then like my second question is around farming. Like, is there a company that you use that help you leverage that?
So the first question, how do I deal with the negativity around that? Of course, you're always going to have that, especially like what I'm going to cut to the chase on that. Like when you are elevating your life and you are rising, unfortunately, it was a painful lesson for me to have to learn. Not that I still don't love people, not that I still don't wish them well, that I still have relationships with them when I see them. But I have a mentality that I adopted very early, I think in my teen years, when I knew no matter what, I was not going to repeat the family history. I was going to rise out of all of this. If you were negative, you were not in my circle. And that doesn't mean I cut people out and I had bad conversations with people. But the yeses to invitations and things, I'm not surrounding that. You become what you allow in here. And so I just kept elevating my circle, those core 5 to 7 people around me. If they were average or below and that was good enough for them, they could not be in my main circle of who got the majority of my time. And that's hard when it's lifelong friends and family, because that is the environment that I came from. And it was always with love. I'm never ugly to people, but if they're not okay with me rising, then they're going to just have to be okay right where they are. And I'll see them in the rearview mirror because I'm not slowing down.
Amen.
And there is listings every day on the MLS in every market. And it's just up to you and your mindset. When you wake up, is your name going to be on them? My first solo MREA year was when I think the stats were 40% of teams and agents were down on their business. It was like 23 was my first solo year. I had done it with a one agent the year before. Like I'm 5 years in a row MREA, and I only formed a team at the end of 23. This is my first full year.
I want to define for everybody, in case there's anybody here that doesn't know what an MREA agent means. It means Susan made $1 million in a year. So that's what that means. That she made $1 million in commissions. With and you said your first year that you hit that benchmark was when? 23?
The first year was 21. 21, I had a showing assistant, so part of it went to her.
Yeah,
I
but
was
that's
still in that solo
6 years
vein.
6 years into the business, you made over $1 million. It's brilliant. It's
Yeah,
brilliant.
but the key is I started KW in 2018. I came from a brokerage with no systems and models.
Mhm.
I opened the MREA book in 2018 when I stepped into this ecosystem, and I thought, excuse my language, but holy shit, there's a roadmap to do this. I did exactly that. I read the book 6 or 7 times. It took me 2 years and 2 months to do it once I had the blueprint. And almost everything I speak about or say or have pivoted from is right there in that book. And that model, that little model I just shared that I've been doing since month 4, is the exact system that got me on center stage in Mega Camp last year with a solo interview with Gary on my last solo year. So it does not have to be complicated. And the more complicated it is, the less successful it's going to be, because execution is hard when it's difficult.
Well,
When
simple
I
gets
do
done. I heard that
simple
today.
gets done.
Great.
Yeah. And I know you had a short second question. I already forgot.
He was just asking if you are working with a company that's helping you
Oh,
do.
the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from the beginning, I've always used professional people. Like even back then, it was $15 to do a piece. I'm like, I don't have time to do that. Um, Always have it professional. It should not look like it was created on your home computer and printed on a printer there. You never know who you're competing with. So I always had to go big, go home. If I'm sending a postcard, it's going to be a jumbo. It's going to be very crisp, very professional, top notch, because I'm using people who do that for a living. I just call that staying in my lane. My mentality as I've grown the business, like as of this year, I have 7 now on my team. But as of last year, it was still me and two full-time admin. So you can do all the things you can grow your ecosystem. But I do the printing of everything, the designing of everything with a person who does that for a living. And I'll just go online, look at a few pieces and kind of get an inspiration for it. And then I just tell them, like, I kind of wanted to have this feel, this vibe. And then when you find somebody that gets your style, it's so easy. It becomes an easy button to duplicate it. And then you have previous templates to pull back on. So now I have like a 10-year library of
I mean,
them.
you could probably recycle year 2 all over again, and nobody would
Exactly.
remember. And you just change it,
Yeah,
put the thing on this side over here, and move it around a little bit, and it's the same fundamental
exactly.
content, other than the markets.
And yeah, and we just keep track in a file of who got what. So maybe next month or next year, when I add a new form, I can duplicate a whole rollout that's already been done that worked in another neighborhood because I know none of them have seen it. So I have a very small arsenal of go-to things. I never overcomplicate. I do the this or that. Is this piece has the same message? Is this better than that? Well, then that gets chunked and we keep it pure so that it's quick and simple always,
Love it.
not junked up with things we're not going to use anymore.
I love it. I love it. Aaron Anderson, what are you thinking? Thank you, Susan. That's amazing. Brilliant.
Good morning. I love this. By the way, my dad was a catastrophe adjuster, just retired 2 years ago, and my whole family was in the insurance business. It was either my path was medical or insurance, and
And
for
here
a
you
long
are, real
time,
estate.
and I ended up in real estate. So I was actually texting my dad to see if he knew you because he knows a lot of catastrophe adjusters from back in the day, but he doesn't. My question to you was, you talked about how you farmed for 4 months before you got your first listing. And we have this conversation a lot in the team with agents who are trying something new. And like, what's the right amount of time to give something a go before you recognize whether or not it's the thing that's going to bring you business? So I'm just wondering, did you, like, as you were doing that, was there like a timeline in your mind where you said, if I don't get somewhere by this time and day, I'm just going to try
Yes.
something else? Or did you just like, I'm going to do this until it works because I believe in it?
No. So the answer to that is super simple. You go deep before you go wide. And what I mean by that is most agents will come to me with 2,500, 5,000, 10,000 in a budget. That's kind of the most common ones. What should I do? I'm going to start farming. Everybody wants to broadcast, like, let me just do all 10,000, and then they're waiting for the business to come. Everybody understands you cannot do like one social media video or knock on one door and grow a successful business that way. But for some reason, they think one mailing and the business is just going to come to me. So the answer is this: you farm the amount of homes that you are willing to pay without fail for 9 to 12 months and no skipping. If you skip a month or two, you're not picking up on month 4 or 5. That is month 1 all over again. Where the broadcast does not work, it just doesn't, because there is no reticular activator. To Matt's point earlier, 498 people, let's call it 500. There's 20 to 35 of them that'll sell, and that's kind of the typical turnaround for the other farms that I've done. the only people that is going to care about my postcards are the 20 to 35 that are thinking about selling. All the other ones are throwing it away, and that's okay because they're not selling this year. So I do have a formula I know we're out of time for, but a formula that I use to choose them and how I've added on them. And I have just added as much as I want. Meaning I have done my plan on 6 neighborhoods. 5 of the 6 I've had by month 3 or 4, the first listing, and the first full year complete domination in it. And I mean total domination, 50 to 60% every single time. The 6th farm, I did the exact same thing in the exact same way, and it didn't hit at all. I have no idea why. But at month 9, I cut the cord. 9 months, and why 9 months to a year? Well, ideally, you start farming October, November, December, January. That's your peak time to catch the early spring and summer people. But if I start farming a neighborhood in the middle of July or August, that's going to be a year because I'm missing the peak of that market. So I'm going to do it longer, if that makes sense. And I think the longest amount of time that you can go between pieces is no more than 6 weeks. If you wanted to stretch the budget a little bit more, less than that, you're not top of mind. And final comment on that, your pieces, I think people go through an enormous amount of effort to make every piece look so fresh that they're not stringing together that it's the same agent sending it. You need very specific branding because they will remember that. Like for me, I have a dominant red stripe running up the left side. It is unbelievable how trained people get that when they're ready, they know it's the agent that has that red stripe because they liked my stuff. Some of them didn't remember my name, but when they were ready, they went. But if you have like I did a window one. Like I replace windows in my house. So here's a window vendor. We had a whole thing on that. I get to the appointment and I will have 4, 6, sometimes 8 of my postcards they kept because of the vendor stuff. Train them to keep your stuff.
Value. It's what it's really about is that you're not sending junk. You're not saying, look at me, I'm amazing. You're saying, I've got something of value that I'd like to share with you. And that's what makes somebody take note and keep it and be interested in it. Really good.
But once we get a listing, it flips. Well, now we're in there. Now we're doing we just sold it, the ask, the list to ask price, all the usual things. It'll change and become more focused on results because we're in their neighborhood and then we'll filter those pieces in. But it sounds complicated. Some people's like, oh, that's too much trouble having it custom to every neighborhood. It's not. First of all, if you have a marketing person, you're not doing a darn thing. And by a marketing person, I mean you put you can go on Fiverr in-house if you're, all kind of ways, in-house easy button. You're doing the same card, but you're just personalizing it to the data in their neighborhood.
Yeah. It's awesome. Thank you, Susan. Corey, you're going to take us home. You're going to take us home here, Corey.
All right, I'll try to sum it up because I keep writing down more questions as you say something. My biggest thing that stood out is when you decided to have other vendors on the card with you. You said in the beginning you didn't ask them to share the cost with you. I have relationships with, a number of them, so I wouldn't feel so bad asking them right up front. Is that something you normally do on all your cards? Have somebody else spotlighted as well as you, like in a little corner somewhere or whatever, and they choose to share the cost in some way?
No, I don't do it every time. I will do maybe something seasonal if I'm specifically spotlighting them, but I'm not trying to be like Angie's List or something like that, where I become known for vendor lists. I want the primary purpose there. But if I'm specifically spotlighting a vendor services, like I do this annually for my landscape guy, because November through February is always hard and lean for them.
That's what I
So
was
we
thinking. Yeah.
promote his business during those times. That's a great time for hardscape projects because he's not busy cutting grass anymore and he gets lean and hungry. So you get great prices and he loves it. So I'll bring him in on that. If I'm doing the collateral of my card, focusing on his business, but it's maybe 2 to 4 pieces a year like that. All the other ones are about my value proposition as the agent wanting to do business with them. And of course, now for the team, not just me.
Yeah.
But you
Great.
got to be
Thank you.
careful with that to not just be a vendor list person. You
Sure.
just
Oh,
want
no,
to train them.
definitely.
That's why that little QR code, it's
Yep.
just on every card, like the QR code with an arrow to scan here for our vendor list. And it takes up such a tiny amount of collateral on a card, then it drops in our from a Google Drive. They need a plumber, an electrician, a landscaper, and
So
it's
smart.
very short and simple. And then we can pass that on to our vendor, and then our vendor partners see this constant conduit, and you know what happens there. They're on
Yes.
it for you.
Just
I like it. Thank you.
absolutely brilliant. So this has been incredibly powerful. I bet you we have another 50 questions, but we have to let you go because you probably have listing appointments today. And so I just before we part, this has been so great. Thank you so much. How can we help you? You've got 35 agents here in Central Connecticut and Massachusetts. We're a large production team. We sell a lot of houses. We know a lot of people. How can we return the favor? Where can we show up? Can we follow something? Are you teaching a class that we can support? Is there a place that we can show up and give some value back to you for your contribution to our team today? Tell us where to go.
Maps approached me, and I just signed off about 2 weeks ago to do a Maps fast track class. It breaks down my entire farming over a 7 week time period, and it's available through Maps. It's a 2 month thing. I'm like not a real Maps coach. It's fast track. It's content. I'm doing it twice a year, and that's it. I'm a giver. So I went on the lowest end of this because I know the relationships come when you give freely, but it had to cost something because it came through Maps. It's only $199 a month for 2 months.
Spectacular. That is awesome.
That's,
Well,
that's free in real estate world.
yeah, that's free. Exactly. For that amount of knowledge, I mean, that is absolutely free. I love it. You're going to get a
so
whole
you
bunch of
can
people to sign up. So guys, listen, there's so much here this morning. We went way over our time. Susan, you have been so generous, so gracious. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Listen, now it's up to us, right? We've got to take a page out of Susan's book here and say, let's go get to work. There's a whole lot of opportunity out there. We know there's 160,000 homes that'll sell sometime in the next 12 months. So we just got to go get our fair share, whatever it is that you want. So make it happen. You guys know the drill. Here we are. It's Friday. We got our open houses this weekend. We got plenty to do. Go out, do your job, do your thing. We call that sign something, sell something, or set an appointment. Go make it happen. See you later, everybody. Thank you, Susan.